Welcome to Spiritual Sunday. I am back home in Texas and chilling out on my balcony and enjoying the view of the little farm next door. Got my little cup with my little horse on it with my little tea in it. And I want to remind you this is day one before the party, the countdown for the party, Sunday, day one, before Saturday, July 31st. I want you to come in your Western wear. I love to see people in their cowboy hats. I love cowboy hats. Me and you look so sharp when you put on your cowboy hats. That's how they do here in Cowtown. And put on your boots, and you can put on your jeans and a western top, or whatever it is that you feel comfortable in. You don't have to come in western wear just because that's what I like. You can come in whatever you feel comfortable in and whatever identifies you. But just as long as I see you there so we can have fun and celebrate. But today for Spiritual Sunday, I had something on my mind. I was thinking about my youngest son, Kelsey. My middle son, Jody, would always say, you know what, Kelsey's just too young, Mama, and you just too old, and that's why y'all arguing and fighting all the time. And I remember Kelsey telling me one day, he said, Mama, you always fussing and arguing and all of this here stuff. Ain't nothing your problem but yourself. You're your own self problem. You don't have any problems but yourself. You ain't doing nothing but fighting with yourself. And I was like, kids are a reflection of us parents. They're a old chip off the block. It's not just because Kelsey's a PK kid and both of his parents were pastors in ministry. It's just the fact that kids are a reflection of us. And I did kind of listen to him and say, you know what, I think I just do be battling and fighting with myself all the time. But on Spiritual Sunday, it comes to remind me of the armor of God. And especially since we're talking about putting on particular clothing, it's really important that we consider putting on the armor of God along with all that nice clothing that we're going to be wearing to the party. And I remember this, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11 through 18. I remember this so well because my oldest son, Ebony, when he was about 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old, it was on Children's Day, and he was allowed to give his first sermon in ministry in the big church, and it was on the full armor of God. And I remember helping him get it together. He had all the breastplate of righteousness, the helmet of salvation, the sword, the belt of truth. He had all that stuff together, and that day was such a beautiful day to see such a young child bring a lot of people to Christ and to get a lot of people saved. The church was packed, and he did an enormous job, and I'll never forget that. And so in my little conversation a while back with Kelsey, I'm thinking, yeah, the mind is a battlefield, and we have a tendency to battle not with things that are on the outside, but with what's going on the inside. The outside is always a reflection of what's really going on in the inside, what's going inside our mind. And some people's mind can be full of light, and some people's mind can be full of darkness. But we know where there's light, there is no darkness. So I was thinking, yeah, a lot of us need to get it together. And when I'm talking, I'm not just talking to you guys. I'm also reminding myself. I've had to remind myself a lot of things lately. I'm also putting my own self into memory when I'm talking to you that we are not having a battle with that outside of us. That's not the battle, because the word says that we don't battle with flesh and blood. We don't war against flesh and blood. That our battle is with principalities and principles and powers and wickedness in high places. We ain't talking about high places like high up in the sky, in the universe, on Mars, on another planet, where Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all of them are trying to go, and we're not talking about people like that. We're talking about here in the mind. That's the high place, in the mind. And the high place is where God resides. But here's another thing. Darkness is also there. Now see, y'all forget in Matthew chapter 4 where Satan went back and forth with Jesus. Some of y'all don't really take into recognizance that Satan knows the word too. Because Satan was trying to tempt Jesus and trying him to believe something that really wasn't so. He was perverting the word of God. See, we got to be careful with that when people pervert what God has to say. And so there was a battle back and forth, but luckily Jesus knew the real voice of God and was able to battle, even in his weakness, in time of weakness, was able to battle Satan. So here we have a symbolic depiction of Satan and Jesus in this occupying the same space. And that space is occupied in your mind, going back and forth. It's almost like what the Apostle Paul said in the book of Romans. He said, the thing that I will to do, I do not. And then the things that I don't want to do, I end up doing. But then we go further down, he says, thank God there's an answer for that. That all I really need to be worried about and concerned about is the word of God, what God is saying. And the messenger is going to send it. The messenger is going to come. It's going to. You just got to keep your ears open and your inner ears open so that you can hear what God is saying to you. Because the battle is not on the battlefield in front of you. It's on the battlefield in your mind. Now just think. God said for you to put on the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, have the sword of truth. You're sitting here getting all armored up. Just think of putting on all this armor. And then God says to stand. Just think about that. Just stand. And then as you go further down, because I want y'all to read, I'm not going to read it to you because see, I want y'all to read it. You go further down towards verse 18. And you see where God says, after it says just stand there, after you done got all suited up for the battle, to just stand there, pray, and watch. You know that song we sang, fight, watch, and pray. Fight, watch, and pray. This says stand. Now, your stance is your fight. Now, who gets all suited up for battle and don't make one move forward? Don't take one step forward? Obviously, somebody that's not going to battle with something outside of themselves. It's somebody who's all suited up in the armor because they battling with themselves. We're all battling with ourselves at times, and we need to stay suited up with the armor of God and make sure we're not only being hearers of the word, an inaudible hearer of the word, but doers of the word. You ain't fighting with nobody outside. You ain't fighting with your husband. You ain't fighting with your wife. You ain't fighting with your boyfriend. You ain't fighting with your kids. You ain't fighting with your boyfriend, your girlfriend. You ain't fighting with them bills, people calling about them bills and them student loans and stuff like that, your car note, your mortgage, your rent. You ain't fighting with them people. No, you ain't fighting with the market and all the chitter-chatter going outside. People talking about you and your family and your business and stuff like that. Your fight ain't with them. It ain't with flesh and blood, baby. Your fight ain't with them. Your fight is with yourself, because you can shut that off. You can shut that down. You can be like, look, I got to go. Hang up the phone. Turn the phone off. Turn the social media off. Turn the TV off. You can turn anything off that's outside of you. You got that power in you to turn everything off that is not serving you well. You ain't fighting with nobody. If you fight with somebody, that's because you want to fight with somebody. If you really struggling and battling and fighting, baby, you ain't fighting with nobody but yourself. That's just the word. That's the Reverend Doctor. Day 1. Hope to see you at my party. Come with your armor of God, too.